What is up, everybody on the interwebs? Hopefully you are having a great evening. As you can see, I have a guest here. While we're loading things up, would love to know where you're listening from in the chat as we have a nice little live stream for you on a Wednesday. We'd love to welcome AJ Cermick to the podcast. What's going on, man?
Thanks, Dominique. Not much. I'm pretty excited for March Madness here. My team's playing tonight, and I'm taking the day off Friday this week, 2 days from now, to watch games back to back. So, I'm getting excited for that, feeling good. So tomorrow's the end of the week for me. Got to get some things done, but I'm excited to be talking to you here. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, hey, man, we hope we can beat that 4-day work week as far as the excitement is concerned.
Yeah,
you got one good going on there. Well, no, I'm so glad you came on. The internet, the interwebs, as I call them, make the world so small. You can just reach out to people. And I reached out to you and you were like, yeah, let's do this, man. So we're talking about rating exam difficulty. These financial advisor exams that get a lot of people hung up. I think people that traffic on your channel, that people that visit my channel, Jumpstart, they're going to probably pass by one of these exams during their journey. And so I would love to get your feedback on this. But before we jump into that, why don't you give us a little quick rundown of who AJ is and what you've been up to and how you actually got into this space.
Yeah, thanks, man. So I'll be happy to talk about those things. I'm at a pretty good point in the career to, share my thoughts because I'm more newly a financial advisor. So I've done those exams more recently. I haven't done the SIE, but that's a little bit part of the pre-Series 7 exam. So yeah, like I mentioned, I'm an advisor. I live in Michigan. I wanted to be a financial advisor my whole life. I always tell folks I feel really lucky to have known what I wanted to do for a career because there was less deliberation or back and forth or, especially doing like 6 or 7 years in undergrad university, you spend a lot of time and money doing that type of thing, trying to figure out what you want to do. But by the time I was about 13 or 14, I started to go to the financial planning meetings with my parents and their financial advisor, and they just let me kind of be a fly on the wall there.
Wow.
And I really enjoyed it. I think the capital markets are a great tool for people to utilize to build wealth and ultimately freedom later on in their lives. So I like helping people get to a position where they're utilizing capital markets effectively and efficiently. And that's sort of, was my draw to the career. So in college, I was just studying finance. And then throughout the years of college, I was looking for internships in wealth management. I worked at an RIA for a few months that was primarily a stock picking service. It wasn't a planning meeting. They didn't really do meetings with clients. They just sent their quarterly performance report. And I think in general, they did pretty well. It was kind of a US mid-cap strategy, but it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. So then I did a financial planning internship. I was like, all right, yeah, this is what I want to do. Applied to a lot of jobs. It's tough to get a job when you want to work in a specific field in a specific area. At least I think so. And ended up in a nice company. I've been there a little over 5 years now. Spent the first 2 years doing a customer service sort of training towards that financial advisor role and doing the licensing exams. We'll talk about a couple of those. Started working with clients a few years ago. I started my YouTube channel, which is sort of how you and I got into contact with one another. Probably 4 years ago. I mentioned to you earlier, the first couple of years I didn't take it seriously or I just wasn't uploading much. Have been uploading pretty consistently for the last couple of years. It's just fun for me to be able to do, and especially when I get to talk with cool personalities like yourself, because I watched your CFP videos like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe around the time I was starting my channel just for fun.
Wow.
So I'm excited to talk about those things with you now.
No, that's cool, man. It's so funny, like how, like literally I tell people that are not on video in our space, I'm like, man, you got to get on video. I mean, you never know. The opportunities that it opens up. But no, thanks for that. I think this is going to be really, really interesting. So many rabbit trails to go down, but I want to welcome everybody into the broadcast. Looks like we got Lauren watching from Missouri. We got Rosie up in Ohio. What's going on, Rosie? Watching on YouTube. So load your comments into the chat, and there's a poll that we did on, I think, YouTube. We did them in a couple of places. There's an active poll in the chat on YouTube. If you have an exam that you want us to kind of cover in more, I guess, more granularity, more depth, however you want to look at that. But I want to go through the results of the poll that we did a little while ago when we first announced this, because I get a lot of CFP traffic, obviously, but on LinkedIn, the which ones do we want to cover? CFA was actually ranked first with 49% of the votes. CFP came in second with 36% of the votes. Then we got the Series 7 exam at 9, and then the Series 65 at 6. Is that a surprise to you, or did you have any maybe no filters on what that would be?
No, it is a surprise. Now, my following on YouTube is primarily CFA related, I think. And I just gauge that by, if I upload a video about the CFA exams, they usually get more views than if I upload a video about the CFP exams. But the CFA is far less popular with, retail wealth management advisors, financial advisors like ourselves. So yeah, I thought the CFP would be the number one pick. I know your following is more CFP professionals. So maybe the fact that I shared the LinkedIn post, so some of my following would have seen it, but I don't have much of a following on LinkedIn. So I am surprised. I thought we'd have gotten a bit more votes for the CFP exam, but that's cool.
Yeah. I think it's interesting though that you say that. Let's kind of preface this a little bit then before we get into breaking these exams down, because you made the point that the type of advisor, type of financial professional, let's use that term, type of financial professional that takes these exams is a little different. And we're going to get into that a little bit, but you were saying like you just don't really see as many financial professionals that are going to be client facing doing the CFA. I wonder, has that been the case since you've had your CFA marks, that you've seen that, or have you seen more people coming into the industry?
That has been the case, Dom. And I originally started looking at the CFA program my third year of university. I mentioned the internship at the stock picking RIA. A couple of the partners there were CFA charter holders. So I was like, oh, this is a sweet program. And I started learning about it there, and it's very difficult and all these things. And I really wanted to do it. And then by the end of that summer, literally within the next 3 months, I was like, wait, I don't really want to do this job. I want to do financial planning like the guy was when I was going to all the meetings with my parents, growing up. So then I was like, well, I'm not doing the CFA anymore. I'm just going to pursue the CFP. And that was sort of my long-term plan. Well, I shouldn't say long-term. That was my plan at that time. Then when I was applying for full-time jobs, I got the job at the wealth management firm that does financial planning. And I was like, all right, well, I'll be pursuing the CFP. And about a year into that job, they were like, hey, would you consider trying the CFA, just because as a firm, they were starting to implement some firm-wide investment models that they hadn't really used before. And the CFA program is a great resource when it comes to portfolio construction. Yep. So I was like, well, if you guys, talking to the partners at the firm I worked at now, if you guys think it'll be useful, yeah, I'll try it. Because at one point I had my heart set on that program, and partially just because of the level of difficulty that it comes with. And so to answer your question, no, the CFA is not more common for financial planning professionals. The CFP is far more common and far more useful, honestly. I when it comes to financial planning topics and conversations, I probably use 5, maybe 10% of the content from the CFA program doing financial planning, and maybe 50 or 75% of the content from the CFP program. So no, I don't think the CFA is widely used or helpful for financial planners, but for investment managers or asset allocators, there it's more common.
Yeah. No, I would concur. Would concur with that. All right, so let's get into what everybody's been waiting for. Let's break down some of these exams and kind of rate their difficulty. I kind of told you in the virtual green room before we started that we would kind of use the Dominique scale. So there's no scientific method here, folks. This is just my own opinion on 3 factors. Nerves. So, is there any level of acumen that you can bring to the table really through practice that will allow your test taking anxiety to go down? And then the IQ factor. I hate to use this, but you guys know I keep it real. Maybe you're not the sharpest tool in the drawer, man. Like some of these tests are going to be really hard from an aptitude standpoint. And then the rigor factor, like what are they testing on? Like how broad is the testing topics? So those are the 3 factors we'll be rating everything on. let's go ahead and start with that granddaddy of them all. That like I have much respect for CFA charter holders. A lot of my friends have it. I failed level one. I'd like to say miserably. There's no way to know because they don't give you all that stuff. But let's go ahead and talk about it. Who typically takes the CFA exam?
The people that typically take it are folks that are working in finance but hoping to get into what sometimes people will call front office roles, Dom, which would be things like actually making investment decisions on behalf of clients. And so usually you're in kind of a not administrative role, sometimes administrative role, sometimes a selling focused role, or maybe just a supporting role as like a junior analyst on an investment team. And you want to pursue the CFA program to show the managers or leaders within that firm that you're serious about this, and to give yourself the academic credentials to hang when cutting it up back and forth, sharing opinions on investment ideas. So that's the primary, but it's actually growing in popularity for wealth management professionals. I think most of those aren't financial planners, but the CFA Institute puts out the numbers on what, they'll just ask, what industry do you work in? And it is becoming more common in wealth management as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I spent the first 8 years of my career at a hedge fund in the back office,
Okay.
and every, you know, it wasn't everybody, but it was a big push for front office traders, especially the portfolio managers, the
Right.
people doing the research for the portfolio ideas to pursue the CFA. So there were a lot of CFA charter holders. As a matter of fact, that was my first foray into all these designations. And so when I left there, the only impression I had on my mind was CFA. Like CFP was like I didn't even know about the CFP
Hmm.
until a couple years into my next gig. So it was always CFA, CFA. So pass rate mid 40s ish for level one. Maybe let's break this down a little bit. Like
Yeah.
how many different things do you have to do in order to be able to use the marks or be called a charter holder?
Yeah. So I'll answer that. And also, do you want me breaking them down in the three categories you mentioned, the rigor, the aptitude, and the nerves right now? Or are
Yeah,
we doing
let's
that
do
later?
that after we talk
Okay.
about how you would actually pass it.
So to become a CFA charter holder, there's three exams: level one, level two, level three. And then if you pass all three exams, there is an ethic. There's actually two other small requirements. One's an ethics requirement. You just check a box. And the other one is not a referral, but you have to get two people to sort of sponsor you, and they have to be other CFA charter holders. So you basically say, hey, will you sponsor me? If they say yeah, you just send them this form, they sign off on it, and then you submit it. So those last two steps should theoretically just take you a week or two. It's
Mm-hmm.
really passing the three exams. Oh, well, I forgot. You have to have 36 months of investment decision making related work experience. So
Oh,
pass the three exams, 36 months of work experience, and a couple referrals.
wow. So I didn't know about is the 3 year work experience new? I don't
No,
remember that.
it's not. It used to be 48 months. They just
Oh,
changed it
okay.
down to 36 pretty
Okay.
recently. And that is really the barrier for there a group of people. This isn't the most common group of people pursuing the CFA exams, but there is a group of people who will be usually pretty high level engineering professionals or medical professionals, and say maybe they started trading stocks on their own and they got interested in it, and they said, hey, I want to work in finance. I get a handful of questions on YouTube like, hey, I work in engineering, I want to work in finance. So they'll use the CFA program as a way to convey their knowledge in the area, but also that they're serious about it. But the issue is they'll have to get someone to hire them just knowing that they passed all three levels. They won't actually get the marks until they've been in that job for 3 years because they
Yeah.
haven't been in an investment decision making related role. So yeah, you got to have the 36 months.
No, yeah, very similar to the CFP where you got to have the 6,000 hours of experience too.
Right.
So yeah, okay, cool. And the maybe talk a little bit about how because if we're going to talk about exam difficulty, I think we have to go into like how long do we prepare? Like how long does it normally take somebody to aside from the earning of the charter holder to use the marks, but just to pass the exam, like study time and stuff like that. What is usually
Yeah.
the average time?
The most commonly quoted number is 300 hours for each exam. I think what the Institute says, and they do polls, and what they say is that the average candidate studies 300 plus hours, is normally what they say, 300 plus.
Mm-hmm.
What I reiterate to people on my YouTube channel is the average candidate fails. because the pass rates are around 40% for level 1,
Yeah, that's a good
40% for
point.
level 2,
The
and then
average
50%
candidate
for level
fails.
3. So to get through all 3 levels, that's about a 10% or less pass rate. So if you want to be in the top 10%, you got to stay. So I did 470 hours, then 620, and then 540 across the 3 levels. So I think it takes. If you're like a genius, then yeah, you could do 300. Some people do less. There's stories of, hey, I just studied 100 hours and I passed, and I'm like, well, that's amazing for you, but you're probably genius IQ.
Yeah.
That's not going to work for most people.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get that. No, I think, and so this dovetails really nice into the very first factor, which is the nerves factor. Because I mean, I talk to a lot of people that have what they call exam taking
Yeah,
anxiety. Like they show up at an exam different than they are normally. And when I took my level 1 exam, there was all 3 levels in the same building, and it was this huge like exhibit hall, and Dallas Police Department was walking up and down the aisles, and they had proctors, and I mean it was pretty intimidating. But I've been in those
yeah,
instances a couple of times. But I saw some people just like literally get up, walk out, just leave their stuff.
yeah.
So all that stuff happens. Like, what would you say from a nerves factor? Is this one of those like that you would rate pretty high up as far as if you don't practice, you're going to be a bundle of nerves?
Level 1 especially. I live in Michigan. There's one test center. Well, now it's different. Now it's all on Prometric since the pandemic. You just go to your local Prometric center for the CFA exams. But when I was doing it, there was usually about one test center for each state, or internationally, one test center in each country. I did it in Detroit. Same thing that you just described. There's police walking up and down the aisles and all the CFA proctors. So, and you're in this huge building, and it's like um, it's where they do like the international auto shows every year in Detroit.
It's like
So
5,000 people there. People don't never. I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's a lot of people. It's
it's
crazy.
crazy.
Yeah.
So the level 1, I was super nervous, and then coming back, level 2 and level 3, I felt kind of like at home, which is stupid to say because I'd only ever done it one time, taking the level 1 exam. But each of the other 2 exams, I didn't feel nearly as nervous. Now it's going to differ person by person. There's definitely a lot of pressure on that day, but I also felt well prepared for each day, so I was like ready to perform. So not so much after you've done it once, to answer your question.
Yeah. Yeah. The 700 hours probably did help you feel a little bit better.
Yeah. If you do that many hours, you've seen every type of practice question they could throw at you probably more than once. So
Yeah.
you're not going to run into anything new necessarily.
I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to test taking anxiety is being prepared for what is going to be asked. I know with the
Yeah,
CFP, which we're going to get to next, um, I felt like my practice exams were harder than the real one. So, uh,
I think you're right.
what about the IQ factor? Like, I typically have, and I don't know, maybe this is just me, but every CFA charter holder I hold, you guys aren't dummies. Like, well
Yeah.
spoken, intelligent, can put a sentence together, not splitting many verbs. Like, these are these are in the top 10% of smart people. So, is there just a smart factor here on this exam, or what would you say to that?
There's definitely a smart factor. Definitely. I've talked about this on my channel. And I like the adjective used there, Dominique, because I have sometimes described myself as the world's dumbest CFA charter holder. And that's okay for me. I'm okay with taking that crown. But no, I have just talked about it like I have good close friends, family, and things like that. Some people struggle in high school. That's perfectly fine. High school is meant to educate people, and not everyone's brain is created equally. So some people are going to be at different points on the spectrum of just uh, intellect to be able to get through that type of content. So like if and I think this is why people have given me heat on YouTube, but I'm just going to be honest. If you
Yeah.
struggled in algebra in high school, I honestly don't see any reality or any world in which you could ever pass, the level 1 CFA exam, even if you studied 10,000 hours, because there's and the level 1 exam is a lot less technical than 2 and 3
Mm-hmm.
from a math perspective. So there's definitely an intelligence factor. I've done IQ tests and stuff, and I know that I'm not. I honestly think I'm kind of on the lower end of intelligence of people who could pass the exams, because I didn't pass them by much, and I study a lot more than average.
Yeah.
So, like, if anyone here listening knows their IQ, I would say you got to at least be like 110 on the IQ scale, 115 maybe. But other people disagree with me, so. There's a debate.
No, I remember when I took my probability and statistics class, and we started talking about skewness and kurtosis, and I was like, I don't know that I don't know that this is gonna go over very well in exam.
Yeah,
Like, it's just stuff that this. I think, to your point, there's like probably your brain's capacity. If you're not doing this every day and practicing, and it's just like part of the vernacular, I think people that find themselves in like analyst roles already and they're going towards the CFA, much easier. And then maybe
sure.
we can bring that factor down. But if this is what, like, for instance, like that engineer or that doctor you're talking about, that, like, this is like learning Hebrew or something. I mean, it's
Yeah.
super hard to try to just shove that information in your brain. So this is the reason why I tell people to concentrate so much on finding your why first instead of exploring all these exams first, because they can be costly from a time and money standpoint. Last but not least, let's talk about rigor on this exam. Like, I know different levels test for different things, but overall, I think what has been said to me is that level one is inch deep, mile wide, and then as you go and as you progress, it starts to get deeper. Like, so mile deep, inch wide type of deal. Is
Yep.
that what you experienced on the CFA also?
That what you just described is exactly the generally accepted belief on those exams. And that most people think that way. Yes. Personally, my opinion was a little bit different. It definitely trends in that direction that you just described. Levels 2 and 3 cover less total content, but they get more in detail on that content. But not to the extent that I didn't think, to the extent that that analogy sort of describes. I sort of felt like levels 2 and 3 were maybe 30% more difficult than level 1, and I don't know, 50% more in depth in the material that they covered. But it's not like a drastically different exam, which the mile wide, inch deep, and then inch wide, mile deep thing to me sounds like two very different scenarios. So it certainly moves in that trend, but I didn't feel like they were exactly to that effect.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Well, cool. We're gonna move on to the next one. If you're in the chat, let us know what you think about our opinions on the CFA. Would love to know if you're taking it. Do they still offer it? What, 3 times a year? Or no, twice a year. It was twice a year, like June and December or something like that for the level one, and then
So
after that, it's only once, right?
yeah, you got it. So through most of it's different now, but for a long time since it existed, I think you could take level 1 twice a year, June or December, and then you could take level 2 only once a year in June, and it'd be like the second Saturday in June each year. Now, after moving to the CBT computer-based, let's see, CBT computer-based, I guess like anyway, they take the exams on computers now, and you take the exams at Prometric testing centers. It's for each exam is given 4 times a year now,
Oh,
and they're
okay.
shorter. They're shorter exams too.
Now, is there a like a probationary period if you don't pass, and how soon can you take it again?
I don't believe that there's a probationary period if you fail, but there is one if you pass. You cannot like do level 1 in June, or let's say January. You can't do level 1 in January, level 2 in April, level 3 in August.
Got it.
They won't let you sign up that quickly, I know, but I think if you fail, you can sign up for the next sitting of your exam. I might be wrong there, but I think you can do it really often.
Okay. Cool. Cool. All right, y'all. We want to leave some time for some Q&A, so we're going to definitely move through these. We may not get to the FINRA stuff because I'm just going by what you guys said on the poll. CFP and CFA dominated 75% of responses, so I'm pretty sure that's what everybody wants to hear. So let's get on. Let's go on and get to the gold standard of financial planning, the CFP exam. If we got like charter financial counselors in here, CHFCs in here. I know it's not a comprehensive exam, but if you guys want to chime in, feel free. Most CHFCs that I know want to get the CFP, so I probably won't have too much dissension here. But if you're here, just let us know. Or if you're in the replay, just let me know. We'll try to do that. So CFP, who typically takes this? I think we kind of covered this a little bit, but just to be thorough, people that want to go financial planning, people that want to go front-facing clients. Would you add anything to that list?
No, that's exactly it. Financial advisors, financial planners, and you might subtract some of the old school brokers out of that list, actually, who do call themselves financial advisors, but by the current financial planning standards, or at least, what in my opinion of the current financial planning standards are, some of those old school brokers wouldn't qualify as a financial advisor by the CFP standard. So not everyone's going to do it, but most advisors and planners, yeah.
No, you raise a good point. Let's hop off this trail real quick and go down this bunny trail because since just about anybody and their mom can call themselves a financial advisor because of the lack of continuity across the standard in the industry, that does present a problem. What are you hearing from clients with people that have the CFP credential as far as the signal, if you will, that it sends to the public?
Less than I wish I was, to be honest with you, Dom. Maybe you should share because you might have better answers than I will. I've heard it from a handful of clients. I've only been a CFP for like 1 year now.
Okay.
Maybe a little more than that, but because I did it after the CFA program. But I've only had a handful of clients go. One person said they found me on the CFP's search on the website, like the geographical search find a CFP function on the website. So they were looking for a CFP. A handful of clients said, "Yeah, the CFP that's the best designation," or something to that effect. So it's positive reception, but it's not a ton of people, at least not in the area where I live and work. There's not all that many clients that are like, "Hey, AJ has the CFP. This is great," that type of thing. What have you seen? Have you seen more clients?
It's very interesting you say that, and I may hurt a lot of feelings that are currently in their CFP review programs or whatnot, or taking classes, which is I've been a CFP holder for almost 6 years now, ever since I had my firm. And I can probably count on one hand how many times people have referenced CFP as far as like, oh yeah, I was looking for a CFP. Like I've heard, to be honest, I've heard more I was looking for a Black or financial African-American financial planner. Like I've heard that more than I've heard I was looking for a CFP charter holder. Or a CFP certificate. I think this makes a really great point for people that I tell career changers all the time. I'd much rather see a career changer spend all their time capital and money capital potentially on getting experience if possible. Through an internship, through externships, through whatever way they can get experience and sample the smorgasbord of stuff that's out there before they commit to CFP. Now, if you're in a financial planning program and you're already learning this stuff, go ahead and take it. Like it's never going to be fresher in your brain. Or if you're working for an employer and you know that they're gonna bump you and bonus you and they want you to do CFP, by all means. But if you're a career changer and you're just now figuring this stuff out, do not go sign up for CFP courses. Like, don't do that. Like, that's my advice. I don't know about how you feel about that.
Oh, definitely. You're going to learn way more. You're going to get a lot more hands-on experience just actually interacting with clients. You would need some good training. It's not like you can go in blind and just know things by talking to clients. But if you have a good support system, good training system, changing careers, then honestly, like you mentioned, you've had more people say, "Hey, I was looking for a Black financial advisor." Just being a nice dude, I think, is more valuable than the CFP. I've heard a lot more people say, "Hey, my friend said you were nice, so I wanted to work with you." I'm like, "Hey, great, thanks." It's probably easier to become a nice dude than study for years and years for a lot of people. So
very practical advice, AJ. Very practical advice. Working on the soft skills, just working on you might go a long way with helping your brand and meeting clients.
It does.
It's hilarious. I love that. Okay, so we covered who typically takes this exam. Pass rate, last I checked, was like 64%, so quite a bit more than the CFA. For a lot of reasons, I think. First of all, it's only one exam. It's only 7 hours of your life. Before the study, of course. Mm-hmm. But and I think and I can give some numbers here. 250 hours is what the I guess generally accepted principles are. Is if you study for 250 hours, at least 250 hours, then you're good to go. I think so. I would be curious. Did you do a review course after you did your education, and were you able to transfer any education over from the CFA?
So there's a really nice agreement that the CFP board has with a handful of educational institutions now. The CFA Institute, the CPA, I don't know the name of the organization. If you're a CPA, a CFA, or a PhD, or a JD, if you're a lawyer, a couple other things, the CFP board will let you do this accelerated course to actually sit for the CFP exam. So I just had to do a accelerated, I think it was called it was just called the accelerated CFP curriculum through Capstone. It was an online thing. And that course took not much time, a few weeks. And then if you pass that, they let you register and actually study for the real exam. So I was lucky to have the CFA done. If you have any of those other professional designations done, then the CFP board, because traditionally you take a 7 separate exams, I believe. You might know better than I will, Dom. And then you have to pass an exam for each section, and then you can register for the comprehensive exam. Is that right?
Yeah, you got 7 classes essentially that you have to. When I did mine, I had finished my grad degree, so I did a transcript challenge, and I only had to take estate tax and something else I can't remember right
Okay.
now. I always tell people, if you've done like an MBA or you've done other stuff, the $100 for the transcript challenge is almost a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Unless you just want to sit through education classes every 8 weeks or something.
I actually forgot about that medium they have, that transcript transfer. I remember reading about it years and years ago when I first started to look into the CFP program, and I think I might have done it in my, or I either did it, or I sort of looked at a rubric they had, and I felt like, well, darn, my university actually won't count for that many credits just because of the nature of like what that program was. It was like much more about like equity research and banking than personal financial planning.
Yeah.
So you're exactly right. They have that transcript transfer, and then they also have the accelerated path that I mentioned. So there are a good quick routes to get to it if you can utilize them.
Yeah. And so did you mention, did you do a review course or not?
Yeah. So I got the a Kaplan review course. It was just what it was a book. It was I don't know, maybe 150-page book, kind of like a textbook, and it just had a summarized version of each of the 7 areas. And I did that. Now, I mean, I'll mention the timeline. Keep in mind, I had been a financial planner for 3 years at this point, and for the first couple of years, I was very heavily involved in our financial planning software. We use Navaplan from Advicent, and entering a lot of data there, and then proposing recommendations and things like that. So I studied for about 3 weeks after getting the review course, this book that I'm talking about from Kaplan, and then sat for the CFP exam.
Okay. Yeah. So you had I think probably 2 things. A, your level of aptitude and rigor that you went through with the CFA probably prepared you for the CFP.
Yeah, it helped.
And then also the financial planning career makes the exam much easier too. Like, I was 15 years in the game as, financial services professional. I had been working at an RIA for 6 years at that point. So it was easier, definitely.
Yeah.
The material, which brings in a point. Before we hit the nerves, IQ, and rigor factor on this one, there's a lot of banter, and I don't really think this is necessarily something to be like a right or wrong. I like to entertain the debate, even though I don't have a particular dog in the fight per se. But what exam is harder? Like, I got some posts with, by far the CFA is the hardest exam ever, and it's way harder than the CFP. Like, what's your opinion? You got both marks. What do you think?
Yeah, but keep in mind, I did the CFA first. During that whole program, I was learning content from that material, but also building experience in the job, being a financial planner. And I did the CFP after the fact. But for me, the CFP was a lot easier. It was just a lot less information that was tested. I feel like I had a really good review guide there from Kaplan that I studied with. And there wasn't nearly as much math. There's just some stuff, especially like in the level 2 CFA exam. I'm thinking of derivatives, alternatives. Those are just 2 of the sections. There's some questions in there that are harder than anything I've ever had to do, harder than the calculus classes I had in college. So the CFA program is a lot more difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just thought about level 1, even the bond stuff, like just calculating
so
duration.
Many different formulas. Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's definitely some stuff in there. And what I tell people though, I'm like, okay, CFA 1, whatever, CFP 1. It just really depends on the person. Like, what background are you coming from? Because if you've got a financial services background, you probably would do well. And when I say financial services background, I'm actually talking about getting your fingernails dirty, getting dirt under your fingernails, doing planning. I'm not talking about teaching the stuff with a PhD, because I know I've heard of PhDs that have failed the CFP exam. So just teaching it doesn't do it. I will say there is a different level of prep for exam versus real world. However, that real world experience seems to trump all when it comes to preparing for these type of exams. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah. The real world helped me out a lot for the CFP exam. The only thing that was really foreign to me when I got that study guide you kind of mentioned was the estate planning section. Because honestly, in practice, at least in our practice as a financial advisor, I don't have, I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
And so, like, whenever, I can share some information and thoughts with clients, but a lot of my involvement in creating trusts is referring them to the attorney and then correspondence back and forth with the attorney with whatever the questions they have for me. So the CFP would give me these practice questions like, which trust would you recommend in this scenario? And it gives you this long scenario.
Grants and gruts and all that.
Yeah, I would just refer the client to the attorney. I would never recommend. It's like, which trust would you recommend? I'm like, none of them. But I had to learn all about.
And no, that's a really good point. It's like in the real world,
we don't use them.
We would pick up the phone and go to a referral partner. But in the testing world, there's an answer. I get it. So nerves factor. How would you rate this? I mean, your particular instance I know is a little different, but how would you? Let's say there's a career changer out there. What would be the level of preparation you would tell them to get to kind of bring that nerves factor down?
You definitely want to have hit enough practice questions to feel like you've at least seen, at least once, I would say twice, at least seen every type of question they can throw at you twice. That would get you to a point where you can go into the exam center knowing, you know what, I've seen everything here, and if you've answered those questions correctly, then you know you're well prepared. So, yeah,
I think people underestimate, and I just did some micro content. You guys can check out my Instagram, Dom Henderson SR. I talked to all he does is prepare people for this exam. He's a good friend, Gary Clement. I call him the GOAT of getting people getting this exam passed on the first time. And he says that, and he's right. CFA is probably similar. You have 2 minutes per question. Right. You don't have a lot of time to spend on this stuff. So, generally speaking, if you get to the question and you spent 10 seconds reading it or whatever, and you don't know what they're talking about, that's a problem. Every question, you should know what they're talking about. Now, you should be able to eliminate at least 2 answers, and give yourself a fighting chance. So, to me, people ask me, how long do you prep when you get to that point?
How long do you prep for? Yeah. Once you're going through practice questions again and you're like, wait, I've done all these twice, I've done all these 3 times.
Yep.
Okay. I see what you mean. That's good advice.
Yeah. Cause I mean, if you've read a question, if you're reading a question on an exam for the first time and you don't know what they're talking about, you don't know what they're testing for, what the question's asking, that's a problem. You haven't practiced.
Yeah. You didn't study. Right.
Yeah. So I never really have an hour. I know people say 250 hours, and I think that's what the book says, but however long it takes you to get to the level that I just said is the right answer.
And even if you're at that level, you could be pretty nervous. I think also, to that nerves point, part of what would come into that is how long. So if you studied for 2 years, doing each of those classes and then those small exams, and then you've had this whole build up to this one day. Actually, I think maybe like 10 years ago, wasn't the CFP a 2-day exam?
Yeah, you're right. It used to be.
So for me, that's what would make me nervous. Like, I've been preparing 2 years for 2 days.
That's a good point.
I think the time period can also. So if you're nervous about the time period, do what we've been talking about and do a ton of practice questions.
Yeah, to me, that's what I said. For nerves, you can really overcome this with practice. Just practice a lot. It was literally, go to work, come home, eat a little dinner, maybe kiss my kids and my wife, and then go study for, 5 hours. And then on the weekends, it was the whole weekend. It was just, and that's what I did during that period of time. I mean, for single people, I don't have any, I don't know what to tell you. I'm just just go study. Like, you don't have a wife and kids? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I was married when I was studying. We didn't have any kids yet, but my wife was absolutely wonderful about it. You need a good support system.
Yep.
And we sort of, you never want to do this in a marriage, but during that period of life, we sort of just devolved into roommates where we'd see each other for 45 minutes and then I'd be studying for a long time. So people also not try, some people do it successfully when they have kids. You just mentioned it. I don't think I could have passed the exams. I have 2 kids now, and the amount of I'm not like a natural kid guy, so like the stress that comes with dealing with babies, I don't know how I could have done that and studied at the same time. That'd be tough. So
Yeah, my heart
I
goes out for
commend
people
anyone
that
who
are,
can do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that, like, when you have other relationships besides just this exam or your job and stuff, or like if you're working and trying to do it too. That's why I tell people, I mean, it's good to try to build a plan on this. And I know I may seem like I'm contradicting myself with the fact that I said you can wait, but I mean, I think you build out a plan. Like, if you're a career changer, you build out a plan of like what this looks like, what your life looks like for the next 3 to 4 or 5 years, going through all these different things, when you want to leave your job and da 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 da. So you can kind of plan this out, because yeah, you're going to need a good support system to get through this. What about IQ factor for CFP exam? I
It's
don't think you have to
there.
be the sharpest tool in the shed for this one.
It's there, but I think I don't know if this is a fair way to compare it or to consider it. I'm just thinking of my high school class again. I know I used that example earlier, and I think most people who can get through high school with kind of A's and B's, so average or above average intelligence, if you put in the hours, you should be good for the CFP exam. Yeah, it's not rocket science. It's just a lot of like terms, definitions, and concepts you got to memorize and learn.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And then rigor, I can answer to this. I love your opinion too, but it is definitely a ton of topics. I mean, the breadth of topics is, I would say, ridiculous in my opinion. Because to your point, you said at the top of this, 50% of what you learn you're using, and you're a professional, so, and you've been doing it for 5 years. So it's like, you haven't gone through everything that you learned in the CFP exam.
Right.
No, because they teach you way too much in there. It's like,
Yeah.
I do not need to know the difference between really like every type of, either defined benefit, or, what's the other one called? Defined benefit, or I can't remember the plan types, but you got the pensions, and then you got the 401ks
defined
and
contribution
like
plans.
Yeah, defined contribution. So it's like, do I need to know all of those? Like, really? Like, I'll just Google it. Like,
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
No, they know it too. It's not like the CFP board doesn't know what financial advisors do on a day-to-day basis. I think they throw that stuff in there because they have to remain, like you said, the gold standard of financial planning. They have to be bigger and more than all the other financial advisor designations to kind of keep that. So it's intentionally difficult and robust and not designed to be extremely efficient at only teaching people the things they need to do to be effective financial planners. It does that and a lot more, which is either unfortunate or fortunate, depending on how you look at it.
I mean, so let's play devil's advocate for just a second. And maybe stepping on my own toes here. Like, if there are, Cerulean Associates, I think, says there's something like 450,000 people calling themselves financial advisors using that title.
Okay.
But then there's just over 90,000 CFPs through last December's. Obviously, their testing period was over yesterday, actually, for 2022, the first one. So maybe we did a little bit more than 90,000 now. But the point is from 400,000 to 90,000, that's a big difference. And so maybe it's worth that distinction to go through all that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's worth it depending on what you're trying to do. If I think it's worth it for like media coverage. This isn't my first thought, but like what you do, what I'm doing, what people on LinkedIn and other things do, Twitter. I follow a lot of financial advisors on Twitter, and you're way more likely to follow someone tweeting about financial advice on Twitter if they have CFP in their name, I think, than if they don't. So like from a media perspective, it does. Where it definitely can help is if someone's ever trying to switch jobs. So if you work for an employer, you're not running your own business, and you don't want to be working for them, right? You're looking for something else, better situation, better pay, whatever it is. there are a lot of job ads out there, I believe, that just say CFP, required. So it can be worth it depending on what you're trying to use it for.
Yeah.
But sometimes it might not end up being worth it. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
hard to
Yeah.
say for sure because you don't know what's going to happen over the course of an entire career.
No, that's really good advice. I think I think we keep on pointing back to the fact that this is going to be, first of all, it's going to be customized for every person. There
Yeah.
is no silver bullet when it comes to, oh, you want to do this in financial services, then get your CFP. Like I wish it was that easy, but it really just it depends. I have people in the friends and colleagues in the business that have been doing it for more than 10 years. They don't have a CFP, right? They don't. They have a 7 and a 66, or they have their life and health, their life and health, and it is what it is. Before we take a couple of questions, I'm gonna check the chat to see what we got. Go ahead and load those in if you're still listening. Would love to hear your thoughts. Chime in as we get ready to bring this in for a landing. Let's hop. I think we can do 7, 65, and 66 all in one kind of pack. This is it's kind of like 7 and 66. Well, it's particularly 7. You have to be sponsored by somebody, so that means you probably got hired by a broker dealer, big or small, and you're essentially going to be a registered rep of that particular company. Which is not necessarily a bad thing unless you sell, products that like a 90-year-old grandmother does not need to use, and that's all your company does. Then you probably are. We don't want you in this industry. Just get out right now. Just leave. But
please.
So 66 gets paired with that because it is. I forgot what they call it, but it's like the Uniform Combined Law, blah blah blah. And then there's 65. If you want to be able to, 65 and 66, they allow you to give investment advice. So I don't know if you did these exams with the track you did, but I had to do those. Do you have an opinion about their level of rigor as compared to some of the other stuff we talked about tonight?
I did the 7 and 66. Their level of rigor is still difficult. I was more nervous than the 7, which was the first exam I sat for, than either the CFA or CFP.
Was that just because it was the first one, or was it because why was that?
I think it was because it was the first one, and because my employers had a lot of pressure on me at that time to pass it. I was hired in this client service role, like I mentioned, with the understanding that I would start doing like advisor training, and they wanted me to pass the 7 before doing that.
How long did they give you to pass it? Was it one of those like, you pass, we're going to pay you right now, but you pass this in 3 months or 6 months or whatever?
It was favorable in the sense that I was allowed to fail, put it that way. There are a lot of, especially like people that were getting in the industry like 20, 30 years ago, you had to pass it or you were fired. So I was allowed to fail, but there was still a, okay. There was a time, and that would make me the most nervous, I think.
Well, parenthetically, hold that thought. So I got on with one of these little broker dealers. I had to get my life health 7, no SIA at the point in time. My life health 7 and 66 in 90 days. I had passed the life and health, of course. The 7, I got like an 85 or something like that. So I was really super confident. Got to the 66. Failed by 1 point.
Oh.
1 point. It took him 30 days later, and then finally. So I got like a little reprieve.
You still fit it in that window though after failing it once?
He gave me because you have to wait 30 days. So I was like right at towards the end of my 90-day period, and he was like, if you pass it this next time around, you're good to go. But you're on warning. But they basically paid you to study for 3 months. Yep. That's all they did. You didn't have to really bring in business. So, I mean, they had a big investment at that point, which I get. Like, I totally get it. I probably wouldn't do that to someone, to subject somebody to that. But, yeah, it was like under the gun. It was like, pass this exam or else get out. So
that was similar for me. I just so I did the 7 first. It was difficult. I would say it was probably equally as difficult as like a college exam. And a lot of people go to college and take exams. You could probably be below average intelligence and still pass it if you studied enough. So it's not easy. You definitely have to study to get it. I think it's 72 or 73 you have to score. And then the 66 was a little harder than the 7 for me. Maybe about
me too.
10,
it was just weird.
Harder.
All that law in there. It was,
I remember a lot in there. I don't want to confuse the two. I think the 66 had a lot about general obligation, municipal and revenue, municipal bonds, and all these weird laws about how brokers or how even like the details of creating a security like that works. I'm like, it's so not applicable to the job today, but I think that was on the 66, and that stuff was confusing and not fun to have to study. So yeah.
It's really hard to memorize some of that stuff. Like I can get through because of my background. I can get through stocks and options and all this other kind of stuff. But it was just like some of those laws. I was just like, when does this apply? Like it was
Yeah.
really super confusing. So no, I agree. I agree. So before I let you go, let's jump in the chat and get a
Cool.
couple of questions here. Thank you guys for hanging. This has been really super fun. Well, Nicholas, if you're still hanging, we got you here. I'm gonna drag this down a bit. Nicholas says he's a CFA charter holder. He's taking the CFP later this year. Would love to hear study time prep for CFP. So yeah, I think we went through this. I would say CFP 250 hours. If you, assuming that you've done, if you go with the AJ method, let's call it the AJ method. If you're already a charter holder, you buy the book. You said you did yours in 3 weeks, right?
Yeah. Well, there's sort of two parts to it. It's the accelerated course. So you do this case analysis is actually what it is. You go through this case. I spent about 2 or 3 weeks on the case, and then you do a verbal voice recording. This is the accelerated path for the CFP. Mm-hmm. You upload this voice recording and someone grades it. So I think I spent 2 or 3 weeks on that. And then I got the review book to study for the actual exam, and I spent about 3 weeks studying for that. So I think it was about 6 weeks all in, if you can use the accelerated thing. Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully that answers your question, Nicholas. Good luck, man. Maybe you can chime back and tell us when you're taking it, if you're maybe taking the November one.
Yeah, let us know how it goes on either.
Yeah, let us know how it goes. We would love to know. Let's see. Some of these are just comments, not questions. Oh, look at Mr. Daniel Tesfaye. What's going on, sir? Which certification have you found more useful in your career?
In my career, the CFP is a lot more useful.
I'm gonna go off the reservation and say neither of my financial background, graduate degree, any of that kind of stuff. I think some of my best advice, this is my 21st year in the industry. My best advice has been the fact that it's almost what you said earlier, AJ, the good person thing. Like just working on myself, professional development, because everybody is so different, right? And I'm just thinking about when I use the CFA or CFP curriculum, and even the CFA stuff, right? Level 1 stuff, I still remember all that stuff. At the end of the day, I'm coming in, people are coming in, I'm asking them what's important to them. Why are they even showing up in my office? What's happened? How can we bring some of the things that they want to do in life into the present? I'm just genuinely curious about like how I can help people and where they want to go in life. I think that's kind of been some of my best certification. Dad certification. How about that? Husband certification.
There you go. That's a good one to have.
Okay. Let's see. Have no financial advisory experience taking capstone like AJ. Okay. So that's Nicholas just chimed in and said that.
Yeah. So Nicholas, just make sure you do a little more than I did. I don't want to undersell it because again, I had not a lot, but I had 3 or 4 years of financial advisor experience when I took the CFP exam. So a lot of it I was familiar with by that point. So you definitely want to study a lot of that review book using the capstone thing before you sit for the actual exam, much more than I sort of just mentioned for myself.
I would even add in too, to kind of piggyback. I would say, most people that I've talked to that have passed the CFP on the first try take a review course. The review course typically tells you to use about 90 days to go through all the materials. So typically the path is on day 1 through 14, really. You are expected to kind of like read that book and be done with it. And then you can either do it online or in person or something like that. But then you have an instructor that's drilling down on the parts of the test that are going to be the most, like where the heaviness is. So giving you, strategies and memory techniques and things like that to help you through the exam. To me, that's a worthwhile investment, especially if you're kind of taking it, quote unquote, cold. You said you have no financial advisor experience, which is unlike AJ. You might want to think about a review course. That would be my opinion. All right, last one, guys, and everything else you're just gonna have to leave in the chat. We're gonna let AJ get out of here and be a dad and a hubby. Mitch Riddle says, my thought on going for the CFP. Prospects may not know what the CFP designation means, but the value piece for me would be advancing my skills to add more value to my clients. Thoughts? I don't know. What do you think about that?
I also feel really lucky that I came up during that 2-year period of my career where I mentioned when I was doing financial advisor training. I came up under a couple gentlemen that were long-time veterans in the career, had both great financial advisors themselves. So advancing my skills for me, I got more of that out of just job experience and learning from those two. And one of the things I did was I got to sit in taking notes in a lot of client meetings. So the advisor would meet with their clients. I'm basically on the other side of the desk, just sitting in there as a fly on the wall learning. So the CFP helps. It doesn't hurt, but I think the real world experience is the best way to advance your skills to provide value to clients. And then I would put the exam sort of secondary.
Yeah, I don't know that I disagree with that. I think, again, kind of parsing for the path you're going down. If you're entering the industry, regardless of background, you're going to pretty much be put in some type of junior or associate role, whether you're at a broker dealer or an RIA or whatever. In order to get looked at seriously, you're going to have to advance your skills. There's a couple ways you can do that. CFP is not the top of mind to me. In my opinion, it would be find how the business is generating revenue, which is typically by bringing in clients, and assume a role that has some type of business development in it. Like if you want to have unlimited income potential, which that may or may not be important to you, but you're going to have to find some way to add value to the firm. And I'll just be honest, being able to do financial plans does not add a ton of value. There is a limit. There's a ceiling there. If you do business development though, or if you find a whole nother set of clients that you can cultivate and bring in more assets, that's where you're adding value. And so advancing your skills to allow you to do that is probably going to go a lot further than the CFP. Because this is what I tell people all the time. The CFP is going to be there. If you learn how to bring in an extra $1 million or $500,000 in a couple months or something like that, then people will keep you around. Right. They will. Trust me.
Very true.
All right, cool. Well, this has been great, man. I really appreciate you spending this time with the audience. The huge deposit. I appreciate it. Any final thoughts?
Thank you for inviting me. I'm always fielding emails, so if anyone has specific questions about study time or hours or anything like that, I love talking about that stuff. But Dom, I was excited to talk with you and be on the show, and I'm glad I got the opportunity. It was really fun talking with you.
Cool, man. Cool. Well, everybody, you can always check out the channel. What's your channel? AJ Talks, Smart Talks, right?
Well, it's the old name and my name now, so it's Straight Talks and then dash and then AJ Cermak.
Okay. Cermak, SR. Everybody can see that, SRMEK. I don't think there's too many people on YouTube with that last name, so you should be able to find him really easy. Make sure you go over there and subscribe. He's got a lot of great content on CFA and just test taking. Period. Obviously, he's a very intelligent individual, so you might want to make sure you hit that subscribe button to his channel. And we'll be doing all the things that we normally do at Jumpstart. Got another live stream tomorrow with Manny Hall. We're going to be talking about all things branding and the 3 mistakes that business owners make and people that hang on a shingle make when you start a business. So make sure you tune in for that. We'll be here tomorrow, probably about basically 24 hours from now. So we'll see you tomorrow. We're doing a whole lot of stuff this week. See you guys. Bye.